Marine Veteran Rocky Hobbs shares his experience on how he utilized the Small Business Administration to secure a business loan in order to purchase an existing business. Up next on Veteran on the Move.
Welcome to Veteran on the Move. If you're a veteran in transition, an entrepreneur wannabe, or someone still stuck in that JOB trying to escape, this podcast is dedicated to your success. And now, your host, Joe Crane.
Have you joined the Veteran on the Move Facebook group? I personally invite every guest that I have on the podcast to join the group. So the Veteran on the Move Facebook group is a great way to connect with previous podcast guests. Our Facebook group will keep you in touch with other veterans that are transitioning to entrepreneurship, and you will also get great updates and free guides on the people, programs, and resources that will help you in your transition to entrepreneurship. The Top 7 Paths to Freedom is my free gift to you for listening to the show, featuring 7 great ways for a veteran to take their first step into the exciting world of entrepreneurship. To receive your free gift, go to veteranonthemove.com. Or if you're listening on a mobile device, you can text the word veteran to 38470.
After retiring from the Marine Corps a few years ago, Rocky Hobbs worked a few corporate jobs, including a business broker where he facilitated the sale and purchase of businesses. One day, he was introduced to a business that appealed to him and decided to purchase the business and jump into entrepreneurship. In addition to sharing his knowledge of purchasing an existing business with the help of the Small Business Administration, Rocky's going to talk about the ins and outs of taking over an existing business.
All right, Rocky Hobbs, welcome to Veteran on the Move. Thanks for being here and sharing your entrepreneurial story with us. Before we get to talking about business and entrepreneurship, take us back and tell us what you did in the Marine Corps.
Yeah, I was in the Marine Corps for 22 years, served in multiple billets throughout the Marine Corps, from working at with the aviation twice, MAG 26 in New River. That was my first duty station as a second lieutenant. And then I moved on to the Marine Corps Mobilization Command in Kansas City, and then on to a couple of other aviation commands, MAG 41 in Fort Worth, Texas. And then I had a couple of tours in recruiting with 8th Marine Corps District. One is the officer in charge of prior service recruiting for the 8th District, and also as the executive officer for the 8th District, and that's where I retired out of, Fort Worth, Texas, and that's where I currently live now.
All right, and full disclosure, you mentioned McCursick and MOBCOM, Kansas City, many years ago, and that's actually where you and I met. We actually worked in the Marine Corps together, so we're kind of old-time Marine Corps buddies, and ironically enough, we hadn't talked to each other for a few years. And I think we bumped into each other on LinkedIn, and that's when I found out that you had retired from the Marine Corps and you had just bought a business. And I was like, hey, man, we got to talk about that sometime. So we'll cover the rest of the details in that, but that's kind of interesting. But, here we are. That was probably around like 2001, 2002 timeframe that we bumped into each other there at McCursick and MOBCOM when I was there for a short time. So good to be talking to you again, and looking forward to hearing your story. So talk about, so you ended up retiring as an active reserve Marine, which actually I ended up retiring as an active reserve Marine also. So take us through a little bit of your transition and your thought process about, okay, am I going out to get a JOB, or am I going to do this entrepreneurship thing? I mean, what was going through your mind as you were getting ready to retire?
Yeah, I retired in 2014, and I decided I was going to work in real estate. So for a couple of years after I retired, I worked in commercial and residential real estate, and I also worked for a company with selling in businesses and doing franchising for companies. So as I started to work through that, I got to see how different businesses worked, and kind of piqued my interest level. I'd never thought about owning my own business, when I first retired, and then as I got to see some of the different businesses and how they worked, and I actually ran across the business that I own now, Innovative Business Services here in Dallas, Texas. It was through a mutual friend, and it was a business that I was trying to sell for somebody. And as I looked at the business, I became more interested, and so it kind of fell into place. It's kind of strange how it worked out, but it wasn't something I decided right off the bat when I retired. I was going to buy my own business. I went into, like real estate, and, it kind of, piqued my interest, and kind of things kind of just fell in place that way. And I, went through the Small Business Administration to get a loan for veterans. I got some discounts for doing that. There's multiple different programs out there for veterans through the Small Business Administration. There's one, I think it's called the SBA Express Loan Program. That's for up to $350,000. And veterans don't pay any, or I shouldn't say any, I think it's a discounted rate on their closing cost. And if you're a disabled veteran, I don't know the exact percentage, but I know you get an additional money off on the closing. I used, I think it was called the 7A SBA loan for more than $350,000 business. But I went through Regions Bank out of Houston, Texas. I know they're very good. They're very helpful, especially since I was a veteran. They walked me through the entire process. But there's other banks out there, Bank of America, I think Chase, that offer the Small Business Administration loans also. So there's multiple choices out there to choose from. But I went through Regions Bank and had a great experience, so I'd highly recommend them if anybody's out there and interested. And,
okay.
I'll give you my phone number here in a little bit. If anybody wants to call me, I'll talk to them about it.
Okay. So tell me a little bit more about this SBA process. Like, you mentioned the Express loan, which is like $350 and below, and you went with the one called the 7A, I believe, which was above that. Was it an advantage? Was it an advantage to you that you were essentially getting a loan to purchase a business that had been around for, I think, 21 plus years? So it was already in place and they had financials to look at. Was that a huge advantage to get an SBA loan? Because I want to compare that to what if someone's starting a business from scratch and how the SBA loan process may work.
Right. Yeah, that was a huge advantage. The previous owner of this business started it 21 years ago in her garage and basically grew it to where it's at today, a warehouse and a fulfillment company. And she had the vision to do that before anybody ever really knew what a fulfillment company was. But everybody knows now with Amazon. But yeah, it was a huge advantage. Having a well-established business, had been around for 21 years with records going back all those years of the financial and the stability with customers. We still have the same customer when she started the business 21 years ago. So still one of her, numerous customers that I have, that I bought into. But it was made the process a lot easier with the SBA loan because you had to provide, a business plan. Which that is a requirement of the SBA. So there's multiple areas, you can work on that. You can get help through, I think, your local Chamber of Commerce. You can go there and they'll help you for free, write that business plan. But I did most of it myself. I did get some help to do that because it was an intense document. It ended up being about 50 pages long. And that was with all the history I had from this company. But yes, I would say it's a lot easier, from my experience, to have an established business to provide, all the financials and history of the company. That I don't want to deter somebody from, starting their own business. But from my experience, it worked out well for me.
Right. And how much of you getting approved for this loan do you think was based off of the business itself, a proven entity, versus your own credit rating? Did you have to put down any collateral or assets, anything like that? How does that all work?
Yeah, it did help. I think it's a combination, a little bit of everything, your credit rating. But I had to put down 10%. I think that's basically with an SBA loan, they're going to require that. So, you got to put that up front. The closing costs, like I mentioned before, even though I didn't use the Express loan program with the 7A, there was still benefits for being a veteran. They deducted my closing cost. But it definitely helped. But I think it really is a combination of, how well written your business plan is. I mentioned that earlier, but I'll say it again because that was scrutinized very closely, and I was asked multiple questions after I turned that in, and I had to give several other scenarios. If the business moved locations, how would you do that? So you got to be prepared to answer all kinds of questions. But you got to have good credit. I think that's basically step one. And then whatever business you're going to buy or start, you got to have a solid business plan to follow up with that.
So ultimately, you got approved for the loan, you bought the business, and now you've been at the con for a few months now. So can you tell us a little bit? Tell us a little bit about Innovative Business Solutions, which is the name of your company, and what exactly you do.
Yeah, Innovative Business Services, it's a warehouse fulfillment company. We're in Dallas, Texas. Like Joe mentioned, we've been in business 21 years. We handle warehousing and fulfillment for customers that are all across the United States. We have a couple of customers that are overseas too. But basically what we do is if you go onto a website and you buy something, that company you buy it from may not have a actual warehouse or storefront. And so when you buy that product in that shopping cart feeds our database and in turn tells us to send out the product to that individual. So we then pick and pack that item and send it out to the consumer. And so we charge customers in multiple areas from, warehousing their product to packing it to shipping it to inventory. We also have an area where it's just warehousing, where we have some companies that send items out to different conferences throughout the year, and we'll send them to that conference, and then they'll ship them back to us, and we just warehouse them. So there's not actually, there's no purchase made with those, but that's kind of the warehousing piece that's separate, from the pick and pack. But we handle all kinds of products, everything you can imagine, from Yeti coolers to makeup, supplements, electronic tape measures, home decor. You name it. We've got over 50-something customers, and they're all across the United States. So we've got a wide variety of products and a well-established client base. And like I mentioned earlier, too, we have our first customer from 21 years ago still with us. I kind of think that speaks a lot about the quality of the company.
Yeah, that's crazy. Now, was that customer nervous, or were they concerned when they found out that the gal that started the business was selling out to you, and how did you handle that relationship?
Yeah, there was some apprehension there from the current customers, but what we did, and I would recommend anyone out there that is buying an existing business, make sure when you sign your letter of intent, which is like a mutual agreement on the financial terms and a lot of the other terms of the buying the business, that you have a long period, 60 to 90 days for the transition that the seller is going to provide you. I had 60 days with the previous owner where she worked every day with me in the business, and then another 30 days she was like basically on call, like an email or call her, and that helped out tremendously. Without that, it would have been very hard to get off to a good start without having all that, unless you'd previously been in a business like this before or you had experience. And it was saying that made it. We told the customers what we were doing, and it put them at ease. For the most part, the transition, I have not changed anything basically with the business model. It's been a seamless transition. That's another thing I'd recommend to anyone out there. If you go into a business, don't turn it upside down the first day you take it over, unless there's major problems, because that's when you're going to scare the customers too. If you can keep things status quo as long as they're running smooth, that's usually the best way to go, and slowly implement changes over time.
So this is one thing I've always wondered about when someone's selling a business is, you were actually in the business of brokering businesses that were trying to sell for a little while there, weren't you? That you said that's how you discovered this one?
It is. That's exactly right. Yeah, I've sold multiple businesses before I bought this one. I was in the commercial real estate, so that's how I came across this. But I worked with a business brokerage, and along with the commercial real estate and residential that I was doing. Okay,
so one thing I've always wondered, I've never really been involved in the purchase of a major business like this. Like one thing that always comes to mind is when someone's selling a business, are they selling it to get out of it because they know it's going downhill, or they trying to ditch it before it collapses. That's always like in the front of my mind when someone's looking to sell a business. Now, realistically, I know that whoever started this company is probably older and they're just looking to retire and cash out and just not have to deal with the day to day anymore. And that's probably what it is more often than not. But I mean, how do you ensure that someone's just not trying to dump a business because they can see the end coming?
Well, what I would recommend is the letter of intent that I mentioned earlier. They call it an LOI. That's where you would spell out your terms, and in there you would spell out a due diligence period. A lot of times that's 10 to 20 days. And during that due diligence period, that's when the current owner has to give you access to all financial records and tax returns, employee records or anything like that, so you can go through. And it's in a very, very important time frame when you have that due diligence to ask all the questions that you want to ask and do, a solid research on the company. And if a seller is not willing to provide you with due diligence or they don't cooperate, I think it's a red flag that something, potentially could be wrong. And you can request copies of their tax returns, and I can go through those also. But I would request a minimum of 10 days, if not 20, for the due diligence period.
Yeah, and I imagine since you were brokering businesses, selling and stuff like that for at least a little while, that's probably some pretty valuable experience and perspective. And then you end up going through the process yourself. You've at least seen other people go through it before.
Yeah, I definitely had an advantage there. I kind of knew the questions to ask. I knew kind of had a checklist of what to look for. So yeah, that was a huge advantage, and that's what reassured me that I wanted this business even, to buy it even more than just casual. Looking at it was, I saw all the financial records. I knew the history. I knew the ins and outs. I talked to the owner. I'd seen the employees. I'd been to the business multiple times, before I even thought about buying it. So I was very fortunate to be able to go through the process that I did, to buy the business. But what I would tell also anybody out there that's interested in buying an existing company would be to take your time. Don't rush into it. A seller that's wanting to sell immediately, like you mentioned earlier, Joe, there usually might be a red flag there that something's not right. You know, and that due diligence, if they're not willing to, disclose all the financials, and also the bank is going to require through the SBA loan process, they're going to require that the seller discloses tax returns, profit loss statements, balance sheets, all the, the financial records. And if they don't, you're not going to get approved for the SBA loan. So the bank is going to try to protect you as much as possible with the process also, but you want to spell that out in writing just so you're protected.
Okay, so I'm real curious. So you're helping broker the sale of this business, and you're poking around, you're looking. When did you have that aha moment, or when did the light come on where you're like, maybe I might want to buy this business? I mean, what was it that triggered that? Because you said you weren't really the entrepreneurial type, and I always find that interesting. To do a little sidebar here, I always find that interesting. I ask most people I interview, I ask them, I'm like, have you always been an entrepreneur or not? And you find both. Some been selling stuff, hawking stuff since they're little kids. Some people spend a whole career doing one thing, like the military, and don't even think about entrepreneurship, and all of a sudden it drops in their lap, almost like it did with you, and next thing you know, you're an entrepreneur. So I find that fascinating. But what was it? I mean, can you attribute it to like one thing, or can you remember the moment where the idea popped into your head that, hey, I might want to buy this business?
Well, actually, I do. One thing that kind of just sparked my attention, I was like, wow, this is a quality business, is when there was 2 or 3 other warehouse and fulfillment companies wanting to buy this business, and they were in basically a bidding war for it. And I knew at that point, and they were well-established warehouse and fulfillment companies, and so they'd done their due diligence on innovative business services, and they decided, yeah, this is the business I want. So it was kind of like that. You said aha moment when I said, now, if there's other companies in the same industry that are fighting for this company, that's kind of a solid indication, that it's a good company.
And did you end up getting involved in that bidding war since it was already happening?
Well, I did. I was kind of on the tail end of it. Once I decided that I was going to try to buy it, I had to back out basically as the broker in a way. I had to turn it over to my company that I work for, and I became the buyer. But, yes, I did kind of get involved in that, and that portion of it worked to my disadvantage to a little bit because of the price. But, in the end of the day, I'd rather pay a little more for something I know that I'm getting as a solid company versus having the unknown.
Yeah, it's interesting. Okay, so you've been in business for a few months. You've been at the con for a little while. You're fully immersed in this whole entrepreneurship thing. What comes to mind immediately now that you've become an entrepreneur?
Well, what I would just recommend to anyone out there is, once you become a business owner, it's 24/7. It's not like you 5 o'clock comes and turn off the lights and walk out the door and forget about your business. So you always got to be thinking ahead, and planning. And you have employees, which is always it can be a challenge. So there's a lot of benefits of being a business owner, but there's also a lot of challenges and it's a lot of work. It can be very rewarding, but it's not going to be easy. I don't think there's any business out there that if you don't put the work into it, it's eventually not going to have issues. And even solid companies have problems from time to time. It's just how it works. But I would just tell you that it's going to take a lot of effort. This first 5 months here, I put in more hours than I put in a long time. But I want to ensure that the business runs properly, and I learn everything from day one. From top to bottom. I've tried to learn every job that's here, not just owning the business, but all the employees. I feel like I've gone and done their jobs, each one, on different days to try to feel I still have a good feel of the company. That's what I would recommend is, to go out and learn everything so you understand the entire company, and your employees will, I think, probably respect you more if you do that.
Yeah. Now, are you one of those that's happier working 80 hours a week to avoid working 40 hours a week for somebody else?
Not necessarily, no. I was in the Marine Corps. I work for somebody every day. But I wouldn't think that. I just think I get the satisfaction of seeing a job well done and supporting these customers out here. It's one of those businesses you can have a direct impact on the success of your company. You can make a change, or you can go out there and physically do the work daily, to make things better or more efficient. So I like that hands-on approach. Every day is different here and never the same, which I like that also. And I like the challenge of, running my own business. There's a lot to learn. That's another thing I'd recommend is, do your research on taxes, and insurance, all those things that you're going to have to pay for if you become a business owner, to prepare yourself for those, because there's a lot of hidden costs that you don't think of. And you're going to have, plan on having some working capital. So when you start your business, you have some money, because those first couple of months are going to be slow with income usually, because you're got a lot of initial startup costs. So plan ahead. Don't walk into the business and buy it and not have any money to kind of help you through those first couple of months.
You appreciated being a Marine for 22 years and working in a couple other lines of work for a couple years afterwards. But most of your adult life you've worked for someone else. So do you find that granted you're working, you're in the beginning stages of getting this, make sure this business is going to work for you. Do you find that working those extra hours, although it takes its toll, do you find there's more job satisfaction in some way because it's your baby and it's your company and you're the one making it happen?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think it's a direct reflection of myself, how the business performs. So there is a lot of job satisfaction and seeing building a team with the employees, and I think you can have a direct impact. It's a huge challenge, but I really I get a lot of satisfaction. That's kind of why I wanted to do that. Is like I said, when I first retired, I didn't think I was wanted to, but as time went on, after a couple of years, that was something I became interested in, and now I'm really glad I decided to go in that direction.
How much do you think your military experience, your 22 years of being a leader in the Marine Corps, has an effect on how you approach your business?
I think it has a lot to do with it. Just the basic leadership fundamentals of how you treat people and build a team, and the organization skills, which are extremely important out in your own business. You got to be organized and look ahead and planning. So all those things that we did in the military, they all come out in your daily routine at a job. And I think the leadership is huge. Knowing how to motivate and treat people. You treat them the right way and motivate them, and then they'll produce for you, and your company will, succeed.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the term, it's just a vehicle to the fight. We used to use that a lot. It didn't matter whether you were a fighter guy, a helicopter guy, a tank driver, or a machine gunner, or a rifleman. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It's all a vehicle to the fight. In other words, just getting to the fight and playing your part in the fight and winning is really what it's about. It's not about the vehicle that gets you there. So I doubt that your whole life you had said, I can't wait to retire from the Marine Corps so I can start my own fulfillment business. So this business just came along, and it structurally and cash flow wise, all the pieces and parts, and then dealing with your customers, that relationship was there. You're like, yeah, I like all the pieces and parts of this. This looks like a great business. I'm going to jump in. So in other words, being the owner of a fulfillment business, to a lot of people, it's not glorious, glamorous, or anything like that. It's just a good, solid, one of those great businesses that's probably in the background, out of the news most of the time, but yet it's true American, good old fashioned type business. I mean, so you ever think to yourself like, oh wow, I'm just doing a fulfillment business, but the reality is you're doing a business and you're leading a company and you're being successful. So isn't it interesting how the vehicle to the fight doesn't really matter? It's just the fact is you're in the fight, and you're making money, and you're making it work.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And that's what I try to, tell the employees. I've been back here packing the boxes, receiving the shipments in, moving the pallets around. Every job here is very important. And if, if you don't do your job, it directly impacts down the road. It's like a domino effect. It causes multiple problems. So, yeah, I mean, I get the most satisfaction out of this job is just seeing the end result where the customers are happy. It's their livelihood out there, the customers I'm supporting, so it's very important to them also. And so it's a serious business. I mean, it's not, it's casual. How hard can it be to pack boxes and send them out? Well, there's a lot more to it than that, but,
right.
But I really enjoy it. And it's a hands-on job, which I also like. You're out there, and I'm not sitting behind a desk all day. I'm working with the employees, talking to customers, doing whatever it takes to make it work. It's like you said, it's a 24/7. You got to keep in the back of your mind at all times. And don't let it anything sneak up on you. But it's been a great experience, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah. So, and the reason I mention that is because I interview a lot of different kinds of veteran entrepreneurs on the show, and sometimes we've got people that are coding and creating really sophisticated computer software and applications for phones and that kind of stuff, and it goes all the way from that to the guy that's producing more than $4 million a year mowing yards. And what's great about it is it doesn't really matter what you're doing. Just recently interviewed a guy who does veteran commercial cleaning out of St. Louis, and he hires mostly veterans to do the cleaning. So it doesn't really matter what your vehicle to the fight is. The important thing is you make it to the fight and you make your contribution. And I like to emphasize that, because if somebody's scratching their head over what kind of business they want to go in entrepreneurship, they don't really know what that vehicle may be, that's okay. The important thing is, you want to get to the fight, and the fight being running a business and becoming an entrepreneur. So at some point, your vehicle will present itself, your opportunity will present itself. You just need to stay engaged, stay in the entrepreneurial game, maybe go work for a small company in the beginning. If you can't find your own idea right out of the gate, maybe go work for a startup, that kind of thing. Get some of those ideas, and don't dismiss all the opportunities that are immediately around you. If it happens to be mowing yards for a living, it can be done. I remember at one point, as a matter of fact, it was back when we were there at McCursick and Mobcom. I mean, I'd been furloughed from the airlines. I was out on the street after September 11th. I was out of a job, and I'm scratching my head. I'm like, you know what? If I have to, I'll go mow yards for a living. At least I can make a lot of money in about 6 months. Hey, I did it when I was a kid. I can do it again. I didn't end up having to do that, but it was almost comforting to me to know that was going to be my bottom, was I'll just go mow yards for a living. So keep in mind, doesn't matter what the vehicle to the fight is. The important thing is you make it to the fight. So I can relate to your fulfillment business because in the process of running this podcast, I've met a lot of business owners out there, and a friend of mine, Paul, fellow Marine, got me started in Amazon. So my wife and I have a private label business with Amazon now that we're going with. And so I've been talking with Rocky a lot about fulfillment and the advantages of using his company versus Amazon fulfillment. And you do have some Amazon folks that you're already doing business with and everything. So it doesn't matter if you're an eBayer or you're on Walmart.com or an Amazon seller. Rocky's definitely there. His company's there. He's got a niche that he fulfills. And we were trying to compare some costs and stuff before we got on the phone to talk about. And it does seem you are probably it's not the same as having it fulfilled by Amazon. But if you're off channel or something like that, there probably definitely is an opportunity to save costs and everything with going with Rocky's company, Innovative Business Services. So before we're getting close to the end of our time here, we're going to have to wrap this up. I do want to give you a chance, put a shout out for your company, make sure we know what your website is and how we can get a hold of you. If somebody's wanting to use your fulfillment services, how would we go about doing that?
Okay, great. Yeah, Joe, appreciate that. And the name of the company, again, is Innovative Business Services, and we're in Dallas, Texas. Our website is www.ibstx.com. Again, that's www.ibstx.com. And I can be reached at any time at 972-245-4222, 972-245-4222. And if you just want to talk about starting your own business or buying a business, or if you're interested in warehouse fulfillment services, just give me a call anytime. I'd love to talk to you.
All right, Rocky, I appreciate that. And I know all the listeners appreciate you offering up your advice and wisdom, sharing your experiences that you've been through, because there's a lot of folks that would love to talk to somebody that's already been through what they're about to go through, and whether it's buying a business or starting a business. So I appreciate you offering that up. So I do want to give you the last word, and I always like to ask folks, if you can talk to that individual who is still in and they're getting ready to go through a transition, or maybe they're in the middle of the transition somewhere, might have already even landed outside, but didn't really like where they land. They really want to start their own business. They want to become an entrepreneur, not really sure how to get started. What kind of advice would you have for them?
Well, I tell them first and foremost, to follow your heart. Do something that's going to make you happy. Don't always look at how much money you're going to make. Just look at something that's really going to make you happy after you retire from the military, if that's what you're doing. And because that's what you're going to got to live with. If you buy a business, you got to live with it. So and if you do decide to do that, really do some research. Do a lot of research on the company, other companies, competitors, what the future potentially holds for that industry, and just look at all avenues, and do a financial budget too, just to kind of look and see what you think that you can afford, and what fits your lifestyle. Don't get into something right off the bat over your head, just because you think there's a lot of money to be made. So I just do a lot of research and follow your heart. Be happy with what you're doing every day. And if you're happy, more than likely your business is going to be successful.
All right, Rocky, I appreciate you sharing your entrepreneurial experience and journey with us. You've only been at it for a few months, and I'm sure you're well on your way and got a handle on things at this point. So maybe a year or two, we can check back in with you and get a progress update and see how you've expanded and blown it up all over the world.
All right, Joe. I appreciate that, and good luck with your business. And like I said, anybody wants to give me a call to talk about my experiences and how I can help you out, please do. I can give you my point of contact at a Regions Bank that I worked with, and they can help walk you through the process too. So thanks a lot.
All right, outstanding. All right, these two veterans are Oscar Mike. As you can tell from listening to the Veteran on the Move podcast, interviews are a great way to tell your story and spread the word about your business. If you would like to get booked as a podcast guest, I recommend Interview Valet. You can check out Interview Valet at veteranonthemove.com/valet. Be sure to check out Thrive15.com, the world's premier online education platform that helps entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, and intrapreneurs learn how to start or grow a successful business. Start your free 30-day membership by going to Thrive15.com and use the promo code VETERAN. Thank you for listening to Veteran on the Move, your pathfinder to freedom. If you like the show, leave us a review on iTunes. Reviews are always greatly appreciated. So until next time, this veteran is Oscar Mike.